Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar as we're preparing for the 2026 season. I'll give it a few more ticks on the clock just to let people join. But I thank you for those who showed up right at one. Punctuality is always appreciated. So we'll give it just a few more seconds because we realize that some people may struggle getting into the Zoom call. Very cool. Maybe 10 or 12 more seconds. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining our webinar. My name is Bobby Ford. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Doppel, and today we're going to be talking about preparing for the 2026 season. Very, very fortunate to have tech executives from the San Francisco 49ers and from the New York Giants. So I'll ask them now to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bobby. My name is Christina Murillo. I am the Senior Director and Head of Information Security at the New York Giants. I've been at the Giants for about 3 years now. Prior to the Giants, I spent time in at Microsoft and in financial services. So I have a pretty diverse background in terms of technology and security. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here, Christina.
Thanks, guys. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Costa Claudianos. I'm the EVP and Head of Technology for the 49ers, entering my fifth season down here and my fifth season and my fourth year down in the Bay. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. 25 years now in the sports technology industry. Started in Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, which is owns the Leafs and the Toronto Raptors. Worked through Tennis Canada, Canadian Football League, and a few stops in between. So, sports technology is my passion. Being in the Bay and Silicon Valley with the iconic franchise of the 49ers is kind of a dream role, and get to do some really cool stuff. And super excited to be here and talk about it.
Costa, talk a little bit about that. You said you get to do some really cool stuff. I know most people, when they think about the 49ers, they don't immediately think about technology. So, what's something that's really cool that the average 49ers fan wouldn't know about technology at the 49ers?
Yeah, for sure. And I think when we think about the 49ers, I think innovation is part of it. And innovation and technology go hand in hand. The West Coast offense originated down here. Legendary coaches. We innovate on the field and off the field. Levi Stadium is, one of the most tech forward stadiums in sports and entertainment. And we continue to do that now with, the AI era, building the intelligent stadium, the next evolution of technology. We're making sure that we use technology to excite our fans, create champions on the field as well. Where the Super Bowl is everything to us in the organization. But outside of that, we host some incredible events at Levi Stadium, such as the Super Bowl last year. We hosted some World Cup and even things like, some of the biggest events like Taylor Swift. We have here at our stadium. So I mean, it's more than just a football team. The football team is the center of what we do, and that drive for a championship. But we do some really cool and amazing things to support that outside and our fans, and especially interwoven in technology and being here in Silicon Valley with some great partners.
Very cool. Thanks for that, Costa. And then, Christina, you have a fascinating background, especially the part with, working for Microsoft and also working in financial services. What are some of the differences in securing an organization like a financial services org versus securing, the New York Giants?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear cut, right? When you're in tech, you're developing products. When you are in financial services, you are also potentially developing products. Here, I want to say that the product is like the football organization or the football game. And so what happens is that you have like two tails. You have the football business, the football side, and then you have the business side, right? That drives football. So it's not just like one marketing department, one organization that has like HR and all that, and you're just protecting whatever data is part of that internal to the organization. Here, I have to look at every element. I'm looking at football technology. How do we secure the stuff that we develop in-house? How do we secure the products that we're bringing in-house, right? On top of the productivity tools that we use every day, that the entire business uses every day, there are specific football tools. So it's a little bit different. There's also the issue with high profile business people and high profile coaches, high profile players, right? And so you have to take all of that into consideration in terms of like threat modeling and also securing. So I like to call it, I say that I'm a defender. And so
Yeah.
I'm constantly playing defense. So I have to like try to look at it that way, right? So at least that's what I tell the coaches and players. Like, okay, well, you play defense out there, but I play defense in here. So
I
yeah,
love it because defense, what do they say? Defense wins championships.
right, right,
Yep, yep.
exactly.
All right, great. So thank you so much to the both of you for that introduction. I'll talk a little bit about how we plan to run the webinar. Um, as we're really leaning into the football theme, we've broken the webinar up into four quarters. First, second, third, fourth quarter. And if we're fortunate, we will have an overtime period. I think the best games are games that end up going to overtime. I can't imagine how nerve-wracking that must be for the organization to have to go into overtime. But if we're lucky here, we'll go into overtime. And at halftime of this webinar, we will talk about the jersey giveaway. So if you have not registered, please do so that we can make sure you're qualified for the jersey giveaway. And with that, we're going to do what is known as the warm up prior to the game starting. And I want to talk a little bit about the social engineering attack chain. The way that we think about social engineering attacks here is we think of it as a chain. And I know there are a lot of chains out there. You have the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, you have the MITRE attack chain. And I think that when we think about social engineering, it very much follows a chain. And the chain goes from setup to compromise. And I'll spend a few ticks talking about each. So what is setup? That's the first stage in the attack chain. And this is where the adversary has to actually establish infrastructure in order to attack you. They have to attack you from a domain or attack you from a persona or attack you from, a fake social media account or a paid ad. But that's where they establish the infrastructure that they're going to attack you from. Next up is the launch. And this is where we get all of the ishings, the phishing, the smishing, the vishing, the quishing. This is where they actually weaponize how they plan to initiate the comms. And then after launch is contact. Contact is where you first come in contact. That's when the message is in your inbox, or that's when you visit the malicious domain, or when you get, a pop-up for that malicious paid ad. That's contact. After contact is engagement. This is the exchange of communication between the dynamic agent and your users, or exchange of, data between, or information, sorry, between your employees and the adversary. So stage four is engagement. And then stage five is the compromise. And this is where the data is either compromised or your users give away something that they're not authorized to give away, whether that's their credentials, whether that's access to a system. So that's how we think about the social engineering attack chain. And I know I'll pause here to see if Christina or Costa wanted to add anything to this. Does this resonate? Are you seeing this when you think about social engineering attacks?
I mean, I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
mean,
one way, right? Sorry, Costa. Go ahead.
no, I agree with you. I mean, this is what we're laser focused on right now, and is the number one concern when we're looking at what is our biggest security concern of what we're doing at our organization. It directly comes from social engineering, which has changed over, obviously, not over the last, even over the last few months. It evolved. So definitely, it's top of mind for us.
Absolutely. But I think I don't think that AI, it's not a new thing, right? I think that this has always been a thing. I just think that AI made it a little bit simpler, right? Like this process could likely take minutes, whereas in the past it may have taken a day or two or three, right? So
I think that's a perfect segue to start the first quarter, Christina. And so thank you for that. Now we're ready for kickoff. This is kickoff. So the first quarter, we're going to focus on the question, how has AI changed the social engineering playbook over the last 2 years? And what does that mean for professional sports? So we did a coin toss, and Costa has elected to receive the ball. So we're going to start with Costa receiving the ball.
So I didn't choose to receive the ball. You're supposed to kick off, but I'll take the reception. We're good. So, I mean, this is, again, we were talking a little bit about it earlier. And we look at 2 years, which is, might as well be now the last 20 years and 26 years. That's how quickly this is moving right now. When I look at social engineering attacks via AI, how good are we getting with deepfakes, over in the last few months? Every new model that comes up. And it's scary good. So you have to really, really change yourself environmentally in the organization to be able to defend against that. Especially being in a professional sports organization, we are incredibly high profile. You have maybe larger organizations. You definitely do. Banks and others, but you have higher profile organizations? Everyone knows who George Kittle is, Christian McCaffrey is, and that's an easy target. And it's very easy to go on there and use social media, use a deep fake, and it's incredibly convincing. So not only in the public and crafting the message around the organization, but now we're looking at our internal resources. So our team, if they have someone like a George Kittle column or a fake George Kittle or a McCaffrey, they have to make sure that this is something that is legitimate. So how do you really protect against that? The eye test is something, but again, they're getting incredibly good. So you need to fight fire with fire. So the new tools that are coming out in the AI space, AI in terms of defending against these are incredibly important, along with user education, the eye test, and working through is able to defend against these social engineering attacks. It's just like I look at, if we're doing football iterations on the field, you have all your tools. You have the eye test from your scouts and your coaches, which is experience that can never be replaced, which is our, security team. Then you have the tools that they use, which is, technology, training aids, things like that. And then you have obviously the player training, which is the user education part. You put all those three together, now you're going to win games. You put all those three together in the AI, just the general cyber defense plays, that's how you can prevent the attack. It's not just one thing. It's how do all these things work together to prevent these. So you're going to have social engineering, AI deepfakes, even AI exploits get better. There's no denying that as technology, as AI get better. So how can you play that defense from the point of how can you train your organization? How can you train your team? How can you provide the best tools possible and then have the best resources and employees possible to be able to counteract that? So it's a game of cat and mouse, and you have to stay ahead. And when you look at the resources of the world and now the tools that they have in the AI space, it's even more important that you counteract that because it has to be important. So you have to partner up. As a football organization, we have all the resources we need on the football side. We understand our technology, but we have to partner up with outside resources and technology resources to use those economies of scale and knowledge to be able to fight this. And this is one of the areas where in professional sports, we always say that we are competitors on the field, but we're all colleagues off the field. And we're sharing best practices and we're working together to fight these social engineering attacks, to fight any cyber defense attacks. So we're very closely knit with, Christina's fantastic and her team and some other organizations, the NFL and outside of sports. So we're working together every day to be able to mitigate these and try and stay ahead of the bad guys along with our technology partners.
That's a great point because I think one of the ways that it has changed is that it's now these tools are easily accessible, right, by anyone, right? Before we used to just talk about script kiddies, and you had to kind of know, if you were a script kiddie, you had to kind of know which tools or just be very inquisitive to figure these things out. Now it doesn't really take much, right? You can go to any of these models, and the tools are just right there. Just pay $20, whatever, a month, and you're in. So I think, vigilance, to Costa's point, user awareness, but also making it personal. I think that's a big one for me. I try to make it as personal as possible here. So I don't always talk about when I'm sending out like security awareness training or newsletters or information. I don't always make it about the organization. I also make it about this is what happens at home. This is what happens with your bank account, right? So I try to make it more personal so that it can resonate. But also I think, and to Costa's point, I think the human in the loop factor is still so very important. Because if, one of our players just call, how do I validate that that's who that is, right? They could spoof his number, they could spoof his whatever, right? Other communication apps that they use. Um, but how do I validate, right? So I think our organization is very much into face-to-face communication, and then having side channels. So a lot of offline channels that where we can communicate directly, right? Not only through what you would expect, right? Like SMS or something like that. So that's super important. And then also to Costa's point, just to reiterate, like we speak not only within the NFL and like the technology and the security team. So we share IOCs, we share, um, I know which vendors work with the 49ers, right? So if a vendor tells me, oh, I'm already working with the 49ers, I'm like, you're lying because I know them right now. Well, I'm not that rude, but we are pretty transparent and we communicate a lot. We even meet a few times a year, so we get to interact. We have offline channels, right? And we share these indicators of compromise. We share tools, we share resources, we share little hacks and tricks and tips and tricks so that we can all stay ahead. So we're competitive on the field, but we're not competitive behind the scenes.
Very cool. And something, Costa, that you touched on was like the use of AI, I think, to defend against AI. I think that's absolutely paramount, especially when you're thinking about organizations that you partner with. And the question becomes, hey, how do we ensure that we're partnering with organizations that are enabled and equipped to defend against these social engineering attacks? I,
Exactly. And we have to vet that. We have to understand who are the best of the best. And again, being in Silicon Valley, we're lucky. You have everybody down the street to work with. But also sometimes it's not just the old guard who's been there forever. Are they able to adapt? A lot of these new organizations have the ability to take advantage of AI and grow. It's what talent do you have? What vision do you have? And how are you growing? And how are you going to continue that? I mean, the good thing about AI is that anybody right now, and probably very well, can be a $1 billion company, but how are you using it properly? So it's important to partner with the right people and the right vision who understand what we're doing as an organization and actually be partners, not just vendors. And that's what we look for.
I'd be remiss if I didn't cover some metrics. And so I'll have metrics for each of the quarter. And the two metrics that I have for the first quarter are around the click rate and then around the growth. First, on the click rate, I read a report recently that said that AI enhanced phishing activities achieve a 54% click-through rate versus and that's 4.5 times more than traditional phishing. So we're seeing that the AI attacks are by default more successful. The second metric is over a 200% growth, that AI-driven identity forgeries grew over 200% in the first quarter of this year. And so when you think about that, they're more successful and they're happening more often. I think that that is exactly how AI has changed the social engineering playbook, that they're just more success. These attacks are more successful and that they're happening more frequently. And so,
Well, they're
Costa,
convincing.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say
I
anything
mean,
to
it's
add
just
to that
more
before we close it?
convincing. It's just
Yeah.
more convincing, right? Before it used to be like, I'm from this country. send me your bank account and I'll send you $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like it can be coming from a vendor or a partner or someone that you work with, and it may not be them, right? And so they're just very, very convincing now. They look good. I mean, and I think it's easy, we can make fun, but I think it's anyone can fall for
Yeah.
some of the phishing emails because they're that convincing.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of like staying vigilant. I don't think there's like one answer, but the metrics are spot on. I mean, I
Yeah.
would agree. I would even think that's low. I
Yeah.
think it's probably higher than that.
Probably. Probably. All right, cool. I think we're ready for the second quarter. And the second quarter is what makes the attack surface of a professional sports franchise different from that of a traditional enterprise? And here I have a really cool metric that I shared with Costa and Christina, and they told me that they thought this was low. That there was one particular sports organization that observed 116,000 AI-enabled phishing email in the course of a single month. And Christine, I think you said that that was like easy work. That's light work.
Costa said that, but I agree. I agreed. And I actually think that Costa answered this question earlier, right? I think it's just like the visibility. We have very visible owners and players and coaches and staff. And so I think that makes it challenging because you're not just like focusing in on one target or just like the organization as a whole. You're looking at all of the moving parts. And so that's one of the ways that I think it's different. Where like, I don't know, like a tech organization, you may have a few visible individuals, but I wouldn't say it would equate to like the visibility that something like the NFL or NFL team has. And so there's a lot, there's a lot of information out there. There there's social media, there's applications, there's vendors. So there are a lot of moving parts, and I think that we just have to stay super vigilant. But it's also similar in terms of um, we're still protecting the organization, right? It's just that our backyard looks a little bit different, but we still have a lot of the similar issues that other security teams have um, at any other company, whether it's a financial services company or a tech company, right? There's still a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So I
Yeah,
think we're kind
and
of the same. We're not as different, and for me, I don't oversee our stadium. I know Costas does. I just oversee the team, the Giants. So it's a little bit different. That's a little bit of different perspective in terms of the stadium as well.
I think Christina makes some great points. I mean, we don't make widgets here. We're sports. It's unlike any business. And it's and I mean, let's go back to February. We hosted the Super Bowl at Levi's Stadium. It's arguably the largest event in the world, one day event in the world, and the eyes of the world are on you. And I mean, we work together with the NFL security team led by Tomas Maldonado. But the amount of cybersecurity threats and the amount of the visuals that are on us. It's a Tier 1 event, which is the largest security threat in the world. So actually securing that is unlike any other organization in over a one day period. And outside of that, it's the team on a day to day. These are the most visible people in North America when the football season's on. This is what everyone's talking about. When the team's playing well, there's even more attention on them. And again, you don't have the resources of a larger huge $1 billion conglomerate. So you have to do with what you have. That's where partnership becomes important. That's where information sharing becomes important. And again, you can't go to a CPG or a retailer and kind of share. You can share some best practices with them. Everybody does have a cross, but the only people that really understand are other sports and entertainment organizations, and working with them together and what they're seeing in that landscape. I would put our threat landscape up against anyone on a daily basis in terms of what we get and what we have to protect. And then mistakes are magnified. You don't have the luxury of kind of hiding everything. You make one, if there's one, a cybersecurity intrusion, everyone knows about it. You cannot hide at that, and it becomes very, very visible and becomes very in your face. It's not something that does not affect operations. So that's why it is incredibly important. I mean, without your data, without your security, you don't have anything. We have to play our games. We have to win. We have to continue as an organization. So it is different. We do have people who understand it's incredibly visible. While there are a lot of similarities, it does have its unique challenges, which is why I work here, which is why I worked in 26 years in this. It's the craziest industry in the world, but it's the best industry in the world, and it's a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, on Sundays when we go out there and the team comes out, I still get those goosebumps, and that's why we do it. So it's incredibly lucky to work in this industry.
Yeah, it's nothing like any other industry. Just coming from that background as well, yeah, it's totally different. It's like the upside down. It's not anything you'd expect it to be. But I will say that it's not only during football season, like we're active the entire year, right? There are other events that, the combine, the draft. There are other like high profile events where we have to be super vigilant and work with the NFL and other clubs as well because we're on high alert. So while the football is not on TV, like during those months, we're busy. Like I think it's like our busiest time, really, to get everything done and prepare in preparation for like football season and all those other events. And I was at the Super Bowl this year, that week, and it's a beautiful stadium. They did a really great job. So shout out to the
Thank you.
49ers team.
Thank you. And I mean, I'll add to that as well. The industry's changed so much. It used to be just a football season, but now players are their own business, and they're 24/7 on social media, building their brands and and showing what they're doing. It's become a real life Truman Show, and you now have to be able to secure that. There are people. How many impersonators online, and how that affects each player's personal brand and how that reflects on the organization. So we have to be super vigilant, like you said, 24/7 in the middle of the night if someone is impersonating someone, or if there's someone's impersonating the brand, if someone's trying to sell our IP. That's 24/7. That's outside the stadium. That's worldwide now. It's truly global compared to what it was just a few years ago.
I know that you both have said, hey, we compete on the field, but we're colleagues off the field. I've heard you both say, I think, did I catch that right? Is that how you say it?
Yep, perfect.
All right, cool. So I think December 6th, I believe it is. I think the 49ers travel to New York to play the Giants. Does that sound familiar?
Of
All
Yes.
right.
course.
So, okay. So on December 6th, are you still colleagues or like how does that work when Costa, you have to take your technology into Christina's stadium? Like how does that work? Are you
Yeah,
still
I
colleagues
mean,
then?
it's
Or?
we're always colleagues. I mean, the games on the field, I'm cheering for the 49ers with all I got. Christina's cheering for her team. We obviously understand that. We both want each other to win. We both want it to go off safe. We both want our fans to have a great time. We both want it to go off incident free. So that is incredibly how, let's say they came to our stadium, the Giants, and Christina came with a security incident. We would 100% hop in and we would both work together on that threat and deal with that while the players are, battling each other on the field against each other. So, that's we have to do that because security is one team. In the end, this is for fun. This is for everyone having a good time. This is to make sure organizations can play on the field. Everyone enjoys it. So we're always colleagues, but I'm 100% cheering for the 49ers as Christina's cheering for her team.
And I like the color red, but I bleed blue. So I'm gonna have to New York City all the way. So
Very cool. And I absolutely do believe it. I had the opportunity to be a CISO, for about 14, 15 years at some large organizations. And I tell you, Costa, the first thing that I would do when I would join an organization is I would look up who our largest competitor was. I'd see who the CISO was at that organization. I'd reach out to them and I say, hey, listen, let's trade notes, right? Let's look at each other's board presentation. Let's talk about our strategy because we don't I always say like we don't compete on security and safety. Like we can
Exactly.
compete on
Exactly.
margin, we can compete on customers, but when it comes to security and safety, we absolutely do not compete. So love hearing that from both of you, but thought I'd be a little provocative with that December 6th date. Very cool. As we move to halftime, there are five winners, one custom jersey each. So five eligible attendees will each receive a $250 MasterCard gift card to purchase a custom NFL jersey from the NFL shop. Winners will be announced after the webinar. So hopefully you all have registered and hopefully you all stick around to see who wins those MasterCard gift cards at the end of the game. So we ready for the second half to begin, Costa and Christina. All good?
Let's go.
Yep. Let's
All
go.
right, let's do it. So the third quarter is when an attack moves across channels. How do you connect the dots to see the full campaign? And I'll give a stat here, a metric here, that voice and text-based phishing simulations produced medium success rates 40% higher than email simulations alone. And that came directly out of the Verizon 2026 DBIR, which basically becomes the Bible in cybersecurity. So combining voice plus phishing led to 40% more success. So that's the power of the multi-channel. And I'll start with you on this one, Christina. What are your thoughts on these multi-channel attacks?
They're clever, they're annoying. And I think that's where, I mean, and it makes things challenging, right? It makes things challenging because I think one big issue is that people don't always like to report.
Yeah.
So there's always this feeling of like, I did something wrong, I'm embarrassed. So that's another part of like the security awareness and training and getting people to feel comfortable that like, hey, this can happen. Please report if you see something funny, fishy, if you scanned a QR code that you should not have scanned. It's challenging, right? And sometimes it's depending how it comes in, you can follow like the breadcrumbs, but sometimes it just takes like the person, the human in the loop, to perform that analysis. Obviously, yes, we're using AI tools, we're using tools, we have managed detection and response, so that helps in terms of putting it all together and understanding the timeline. But there's also things that, like, let's say I have to do, right, or the team has to do to make sure that we understand like the entry point to, the timeline, so forth and so on. But one of the things that I focus on a lot is ensuring that people are comfortable reporting, whether it's texting me directly, calling me, walking, into my office to say, hey, I did click on this, I did enter my credentials, I'm sorry. And then me making them feel comfortable, like it happens, this is what we're gonna do. You know what I mean? So I think their response is also a big piece of that puzzle. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. We're not bored, I tell you that much.
Right. And then, Costa, from your perspective, how are you connecting the dots across these multi-channel attacks?
Yeah, and it's interesting because seems to be a new platform every day and an attack vector. And I look back and kind of what's old is new again. What's one of the most effective ones is the phone. People calling in and impersonating, that's incredibly effective. And I look at 26 years ago or some when I started, we had the phone and computer, and now we got you have your phone, you have text, you have emails, you have social media, you have AI. Enhanced security right now. So you have to monitor all platforms. And like I was talking before, we are an always on organization. And the attacks come at any time, and the attacks can come when your guard is down. That 2 a.m. call. I need to get in, I need to do this. It's very easy to kind of just, have that, say, take care of it. So you have to really have gates. You have to have governance. You have to have an ability to confirm things through while the multi-platforms are used as an attack vector, they could also be used as a way to secure. So, you have multi-factor authentication, SSO, phone confirmation. You do this for financial services. You can't just, a good organization, the most organizations I hope would have um, multi-platform confirmations for large amounts of payments. You need to do that for things that you consider small things like password resets. They're not small things. If you look at it's that's the gateway to what you have in your organization. So secure your resources like you secure your money, because they are the same thing. So that's what you look at as a holistic security and defense approach. And it can't just be what's in your house. It has to be what's outside your house, because now, again, global platform, everything takes care outside. So you have to be able to monitor what's going on outside of your organization, dark web, social media, and all those types of things, because you obviously crypto scams are huge. So I'm just naming off and babbling different platforms, but that's how it's become. So good regulations, good priority controls in your organization and monitoring outside of your organization. And again, treat your security like you treat your money, because it is the same thing. And if you don't treat it, you won't have either. It's very important how we look at that.
The problem is that there isn't a single pane of glass, right? So when we talk about connecting the dots, it's difficult to just look at, you're not going to go into one dashboard every day. Well, maybe you have an agent or a team of agents that will feed you this information. But like today, you still have to piece things together, right? Because you may have a third party risk management platform, you may have a GRC platform, and maybe you have some integration there, but not everything integrates smoothly, right? So sometimes you do have to like piece things together. And then you also have the shadow IT and, dare I say, the shadow AI issue, right? Where maybe end users are using something out of band and for productivity purposes, right? And they're not reporting that. And maybe there's an incident, right? So there's so many moving parts, which is why I say that, it's not impossible, but it is challenging. And I think a big part of that is like gaining the trust of your folks, of your colleagues, to be able to come to you with these issues, or come to you with like, hey, I want to onboard this application. Like, is it secure? Pretty much like in investing in like that security culture, right? I think is paramount, because we can say that we have everything covered, but the reality is that there are blind spots. There are always going to be blind spots, right? And one person cannot be, or two or three cannot be the expert across everything. So you're going to eventually miss something. And because there is no single pane of glass, it makes it difficult. So yes, to Costa's point, but I think it's a juggling act. And I think because there are multi-platforms where these threats are coming through, but also on the security side, there are multiple things that we have to look at on a daily basis. And we could be looking at our AppSec thing, application, and then something else comes in somewhere else. So it's just a juggling act. And I think this is the case across the board. Every CISO or security leader I speak to across the domains speaks to the same issue, even across sports teams, right? Or leagues, speaks to the same issue.
Yeah. Absolutely agree that it is a challenge. Absolutely also agree, Costa, that you have to look across multiple platforms.
Mhm.
I think that when we came up with the social engineering attack chain, like that was the question we were trying to answer. What's a framework that we can leverage that looks across the different stages of an attack and then factors in the channels? So like I have this mental model of an X and a Y axis. Across the X are the different stages of the social engineering attack, all the way from setup to compromise. And then across the Y axis are the various channels. You have,
Mhm.
the web, you have email, you have telephone, you have social media. And then the question becomes, okay, if I were to lay out that as a framework and sort of give myself a red, yellow, green, like where am I terrible? Where am I okay? I think that's like a different approach. And the only way I think you can answer that question is through leveraging, a platform that helps you connect those dots. I know that there are some CISOs who are big on point solutions, and then there are other CISOs who like platforms. The reason why I've always been on the side of those that like platforms is because I sort of look at a platform the same way that I look at my primary care physician, and I look at point solutions the same way that I look at urgent care. And here's what I mean by that illustration, that my primary care physician knows me, knows my name, has most of my medical records. I've built a relationship. And so not only can I go to her for something reactive, but I can also go to her and she can help, look at my test results and be very, very proactive and prescriptive. Whereas opposed to the urgent care, I got to fill out the form every time. I got to give them brand new information every time. They have none of my medical history. So they truly are being reactive and they might actually misdiagnose something. So I have a greater risk. And that's sort of how I differentiate between platform providers versus like point solutions. I don't know, does that resonate at all? Or does that sound like sort of how you think about your security stack?
No, and I love that. I love that comparison. For platform, every system has to talk to each other. It's even goes on the data side. It's that golden record. Because if you're having disparate systems here and there, you can miss something. And you can be talking different languages. You can, so actually having things integrated allows you to be able to see, to be able to change, to be able to, work to that. So making sure that our systems are talking to each other. It doesn't necessarily have to be a single pane of glass, as Christina says, but there has to be that level of integration. There has to be that crosstalk. There has to be that information sharing. I look at it as, again, I'll go back to my football analogy. We have our head coach. And Kyle puts together the things that all the subject matter experts. So you have an expert on defense, you have an expert special teams, those coaches, but they all come to Kyle and they're making sure that we're working together for that one goal. That's how I look at, making sure that we have a platform across the organization. And then you also have to be honest with yourself. You have to make sure that you know where you can get better. You know where the threats are, you know where the weaknesses are, and you can address those. And a platform approach allows you to be able to see that and allows you to be able to address it quicker than trying to find a needle in a haystack, if that makes sense.
A platform approach, yes, to everything you said, but a platform approach it could also be the single point of failure, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a gift and a curse. I think it depends on just how you structure your infrastructure, and if you have redundancy in
Yeah.
place as well, if you're thinking about that. So, and to be honest, like I would love to have one platform for as much as possible, but that's not the reality. Sometimes you do need point solutions, right? Because there may be this one use case or three use cases that your platform does not tackle, right? And so
Yeah.
you need this point solution. And then 2 years pass, and then you need another point solution because there are more priority controls, right? Wink, wink, to
Yeah.
Costas. But so it just happens, right? It just sometimes it gets away from you and you try the platform approach as much as possible, but sometimes you may need three platforms, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they do integrate and sometimes they don't. This is the name of the game. But in an ideal world, yes, everything is perfect and beautiful, then there are no threats. But we
Yeah.
don't live in an ideal world.
Unfortunately, we don't. All right, cool. So I think we're ready for the fourth quarter now. And the question that we'll use to frame out the fourth quarter is, if you were building a preseason security checklist, what should every team have in place before kickoff? And here I want to give a really cool metric, and I'm trying to figure out which one is the best. How about this one? 99% unreported. Employees fail to report 99% of advanced text-based phishing attacks. So, Costa, when you hear that, how do you think about if that's like people aren't reporting and you have to come up with a pre-kickoff checklist? What are your thoughts there? How do you build that checklist?
It's not if we have to preseason checklist. That's where we're right in the middle now. So very, very timely. I mean, but we're 24/7 all year round, but we do shift a little bit to the preseason as you have to conform to what's happening at the time. You have to be adaptable. And looking at what you're saying is with that stat, It tells me how important the education piece is. You have to make sure that there is cyber ready awareness. And I know one of the questions are, do you train the players and the organization? Yes, we do. Everyone gets constant reminders, testing on it, education. We'll send out articles. We'll send out IOCs to the organization to make sure that not only are they educated, but it's also top of mind because we do so many things that sometimes your mind is not on cyber education. So we want to keep it top of mind so people are always thinking, so that when one of these text messages comes in, and they do, everyone gets them. When one of these phishing emails, they will report. And they will not just kind of say, I got something else to do, because that helps our systems understand and learn. Second point, we want to make it easy for them to do. It shouldn't be hard for someone to report. It should be easier for someone to report than to click on the phishing link. So making sure that we have the tools in place to make it easy and seamless for our users, and that they know how to do it, and the way to do it. And thirdly, are our tools working? Have we optimized our tools and platform across the organization to respond to these threats? To work at a 0-day capacity, because we know with all the AI models coming out, exploits are caught before they can be patched, and it's immediate. So we have to have great 0-day capability to make sure that we are finding these, we're isolating these, we're mitigating these, and we are correcting these. So it's a multi pronged approach. I said it off the top. It's user education, top of mind, the right tools in place, and making sure that we have the team in place that is acting on these, that is monitoring these, and not just listening to noise. Sometimes it can be noise where you get a lot. So we want to make sure that we are configured for high profile, real alerts in there versus, just a lot of alerts that people are just going to turn off. So it's a multi-pronged approach for not only the preseason, during the season, off season, big events, 24/7. But this is how we kind of do it in our organization.
So I know our IT team they have their own checklist in terms of like preseason checks, right? Make sure the clocks are updated, like updates and iPad updates and all these other things. From a security perspective, I like to say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And so what I mean by that is that I work on the fundamentals all year long, right? And I look at how to get better, how to improve. So it's not a preseason, postseason type of check thing. It's a all year round thing, right? Um, I look at areas where, we are weak. We have assessments, we have penetration testing, we have like all these things year round. So I'm just looking at areas of improvement, how to get better, how to improve. Are we doing the basics? Are we doing the fundamentals? How well are we doing them, right? Can we improve upon them? Is everybody registered for MFA? We need to go back. We have all new hires get automatic training. So the minute their account is created, they get onboarding security awareness training that they have to do. If not, they will be constantly reminded. It will get escalated to their supervisor. It will go up to senior leadership. So I do snitch, and I will snitch when it comes to that because I want you to get it done. I'm very transparent about that. Like, you didn't get your thing done, you better get it done because I will snitch on you, right? But also making it like fun, right? Like there's a reason behind the madness. But again, I am a very big proponent on fundamentals and continuously improving, doing the basics as best as you can. Someone once said like the beauty's in the basics, and I 100% agree because it's not easy. The basics just because they're basics or fundamentals doesn't mean that they're simple to do, right? So it's a constant, you have to kind of constantly reevaluate, get better. Um, that includes patching, that includes, you know, risk management, that includes everything, updating, not only patching, that includes, are we getting our security updates every patch Tuesday, right? Or is there a delay? Not only the platforms, but also those point solutions, right? Like, what is our process? So identity as well is a big one. So it's across all of the domains, it's working to make sure that we're as resilient as possible year round so that we don't have to necessarily have a checklist before the season kicks off.
I think that that's great counsel on both parts. I know when I think about a checklist, and I have quite a few conversations with CISO friends of mine, like, it's a shameless plug, but I really do believe in like the social engineering attack chain. and I ask them to look at the solutions that you have in place
Mhm.
and then sort of put them like, where do they cover off in this attack chain? And you'd be surprised at how nicely it fits, but then you'd also be surprised at like where there are immediate gaps. And I'm not saying you need a solution there, but perhaps having some type of, administrative control or having a policy or a standard that helps cover off on the gaps. So I absolutely agree that, if you're ready, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And I also believe in, hey, making sure you do the fundamentals right. So with that, we're now ready to go into overtime with live Q&A for our final 7 or 8 minutes. So I'll turn it over to you, Miles.
Awesome. The first question we have here, Costa and Christina, feel free to whoever wants to answer this. But Alexander had the question, can you speak to working with leadership and high-level team personnel to enforce the same standards and control sets with them as the rest of the enterprise? Alexander then goes on to explain that from their experience, it's proved challenging to get their engagement and compliance.
I think it's critical that it's a top-down approach. People will follow leadership as they should in an organization. The strategy is, set from the top with input from everyone else. We're incredibly lucky. Our CEO, Al Guido, understands the importance of security, cybersecurity organization. He understands what happens if that is not in place. So we have incredible support from leadership and our executive leadership team, which filters down to everyone. So things like cybersecurity training, they're on that. The resources we need in to go out and get the platforms to get things done through our organization. I think it is absolutely critical. If you don't have leadership's buy-in, you don't have anything, it will crumble. So I encourage everyone to get leadership's buy-in. I mean, there's no real way around it. And the way to do that is really focus on the value, because cybersecurity is like a referee. It's best when you don't notice it. So you really have to, and when you notice it, we have a problem. So you really have to, as your technology leaders and security technology leaders in the organization, have to really stress the importance to your leadership team into how this helps the business. Break down silos, work with the business, put together the case study, and really get that buy-in. Have them involved in the decisions. Have a cybersecurity governance committee that brings in leaders across the organization. It's not an IT problem; it's a business problem, and everyone needs to work together. We may be experts on the technology side, but everyone else is experts in their business. And if you can translate that to the risk to their business, they will understand that these are smart people. They didn't get into the position by not being smart. So they will understand the risks of the business when you do that and work together with them and work to a solution together as an organization versus as a silo. This is an IT thing.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's extremely hard, but I agree with everything Costa said. I mean, I think it's a top-down approach. Without that, you will not be successful at all. I'm very lucky that they hired me. So there was already like a committee in place. And when I came on board, I just I asked what was important to them, right? It was not about what was important to me. I mean, I wanted to like dive into the fundamentals right away, but it wasn't about me. It was about what was important to the business, what was important to leadership. And, I heard them, and by hearing them and having these discussions, I was able to gain trust. And by gaining trust, I was able to get more leverage and tools and resources to do what I needed to do. And I think over time, it just evolved into, where we are today, where it is top down and where I've been able to communicate with our entire organization. And it's either that they're scared of me or that they're scared of the NFL. I'm not a bully, I promise, but they get it done, and just making it like more fun and, but having everyone understand that like this is a requirement. And when all else fails, I just blame the NFL. I say, well, this is an NFL requirement. You have to do it. And it works. It does work. So thank you, NFL. Thank you, the ISO team. So that's another way. Like if I have to pull like all the levers, I'm just like, listen, this is an NFL requirement. You don't want to piss off the NFL, and they get it done. So whatever works. Hey, I'm not lying, I'm just, I'm using all my tools to my advantage, all the tools to my advantage. So, but definitely a top-down approach. And yes, it is difficult. There are some things that you have to compromise on, right? You can't get it all done, but yeah, it's what keeps our jobs exciting. and stressful.
Amazing. And we have time for two more questions. Jamie has the question, how much are you doing in-house versus leveraging your MDR? Spear phishing/phishing is insane with 160,000 per week. How are you managing that?
You know what, I don't know if it's 50-50, but we do have our MDR, but they don't manage our like phishing. We may or may not have a point solution, and I may or may not be very involved in that. So we manage, right? So, but I think it's a collaboration. We also work with the NFL Global Security Operations Center, so we get a lot of intel from them as well as the other teams. So including like phishing emails, right? And those type of IOCs. So some days are quiet, some days our tools handle all of the phishing very nicely. Some days things go through and we have to jump on it. So it's a dance. It's a little bit of a salsa, if
Yeah.
you will.
I can't salsa, but it is a dance. You don't want to see me try and dance. But I mean, we use all the tools that we have. We have, in-house, obviously, our cybersecurity team understands our business better than anyone else. And we use that. We use our MDR. We work with the league and their resources. We work with other teams. I don't put a limit on the tools. A lot of these organizations outside have these vast resources. They hear a lot of things that we do before we do. And vice versa. So we work together for the best solution as possible. And it is a real team approach. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not one or the other. It is a team approach in securing your enterprise and your team. And we use all the resources at our disposal.
Amazing. Thank you both for that. And then we have one more question. Costa, this is probably more in your realm. How do you handle secured connections by press and media, security personnel, third-party vendors, etc., who need access to Wi-Fi, press, and stadium concession booths via badge access on game day?
Mhm.
So I can't give you all the tricks of that one. We have a very robust program to separate everyone and make sure that they can get the resources that they need to. The press needs access to their resources. The fans, want to share their experience, have a great time on game day, use our app, get their ticket, order their food. We don't want to limit that. The players, the league has their requirements. So it's a fine balancing act. You want to make sure that everyone has seamless access to their resources, while at the same time incredibly secure access. Working together with all the different groups, and getting and our network team and our security team work together, and as well as our marketing teams, our press team, our AV teams, making sure that we're testing, that we're segmenting, and making sure that it all works right on game day. You cannot have a blip. What people don't understand on game day is that 99.9% uptime is great for other organizations. For us, that's potentially millions of dollars lost. That's potentially a disruption to the game on the field. We need 100% uptime. So we cannot afford to have any mistakes. So working closely to make sure that it's a seamless experience for all these different stakeholders, while also making sure that it's secure, takes months of prep for hours of results. I look at it like 100-meter sprinters, right? It's the most exciting 10 seconds of sports, but they work all their lives to make sure that that they're at their best at that time. So we're the same way, and we need to make sure that the tools work, the people work, that it's tested and it's reliable for 100% uptime on game day. And that's not hyperbole.
And
Amazing.
there's a pretty robust program that clubs and the NFL have for passes. So like for media passes, press passes and stuff like that, that may or may not involve like very extensive background checks, to validate and verify that the person is who they say they are and they work where they say they work. And for the record, we also go through extensive background checks on an annual basis as well, maybe even more, depending on if we're going to different events. And so there's very thorough vetting in collaboration with our like physical security teams as well. Um, so yeah, a lot of security.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for the questions. And Bobby, I'll leave it to you for parting thoughts.
Yeah, so Miles, we're gonna contact the individuals that won directly?
Correct. Yes, we'll
All right, very
contact you
cool.
individually via email.
Very cool. So you'll be contacted. Costa and Christina, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Thank you for your willingness to participate. Thank you for your candid responses and your transparency. Any final comments or anything to the audience?
I
Well,
just want
thanks.
to, thank you and the team. It was great. Some good questions, good conversation. And it's great that the, cybersecurity is always shown in spotlight, especially with the changing threat landscape and AI's role as we move forward. So thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And don't forget to buy your football tickets. Go Big Blue.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.